All right. Okay, so I'm just gonna get started right now. And if more people show up, well, then they'll just be missing out a little bit. Okay. So hello, everyone. Let me go back. So my name is Juan Velasquez, and welcome to part 1 of the Vue.js workshop. So today we're just going to be going over some very basic Vue concepts, and we're also going to be introducing y'all to what Vue is, so you can understand like why you would want to use it. So yeah, we're going to go, what is Vue, why you want to learn it, how to set it up, and also some resources that you can visit to learn more about it. Okay. So basically, Vue is a JavaScript framework, and it mainly handles like front-end development. So do you all know what front-end and back-end is, and like what full stack is? Yeah, okay. So yeah, so basically front end handles like what the client sees, and the back end handles what like the server is doing. So Vue is just mainly concerned with like what's happening on the client side. So in the past, this would be handled using like HTML and CSS and of course JavaScript. Now with Vue, you're able to basically combine all those things into just like a single file or to a single script. So, so here is an example of a Vue file, I guess you would say. So you would just be creating it from a package called Vue. So I can actually show you guys like an example of that. So let me just share instead Visual Studios. Okay. So let's create index.html. And if you have Visual Studio, you can pull that up. And so you should already have emit. And what that basically is, if you do HTML, emit comes like with all Visual Studio code. And you're able to just like generate from a snippet. So here, basically what Vue does is that it exists as a script, and we also need to import that. So let me very quickly actually show you how you would do that. So let's actually not go to that just yet. Okay. So let's just still go up to why you would want to actually use Vue. So it's a reactivity system, which basically means that all of like the variables that you use are actually code-dependent, and can also be independent, but they can be dependent on many things. So Vue handles all of the re-rendering for you whenever something changes. And also it's progressive. So that means that you don't have to change any of your code whenever you want to add a new module. So if you want to have like multiple routes, right? Maybe you want to have one for your home, one for your about, and one for your contact page. You can do that using Vue Router, state management. That's for something else. Server-side rendering, you know, using like Express or other backend frameworks. You can also use TypeScript. That is like basically JavaScript, but like better. That's how I would describe it. So am I going too fast for y'all, or are you okay with the space? Just want to make sure I haven't lost any of you yet. Okay, well, I'll take silence as for a yes. Okay. Oh, and just to make sure, I was sharing my screen, right? Okay. Yeah, I am sharing the screen. Okay, so let's just go and skip that. All right, so how do you actually use Vue? So you can do a number of ways. So in the past, with like Vue 1 and Vue, sorry about that, guys. Okay, so yeah, so yeah, sorry about that. I was using the wrong Wi-Fi. So yeah, my Wi-Fi is pretty slow, so I switched over to my hotspot. But let me just reshare the screen and just go back a little bit. So did y'all hear what I said for everything before this page? Okay, so I am recording. I am doing that. Okay. All right. So as I was saying before I got disconnected, so basically how Vue works in the moment, you can either do it two ways. There's this thing called the Options API, and there's a thing called the Composition API. And in the past, it was just the Options API. So let me show you what that is. So let me create a new share, Visual Studio Code. So this, if you have Visual Studio Code, you can pull that up. And this is called Emmet. So Emmet comes standard with all Visual Studio Code. So you can just do that. I forget the CDN for importing it. So let me just search that up real quick. So let me stop this real quick and look at the CDN for that. Because you can either import it using a CDN. So, or you can import it using NPM, which is a package manager. So let me just find that real quick. Yeah, sorry about that. I always forget what it was called. Okay, there you go. I found it. Okay, so let me just put that for there, and then go back over here and share it right here. Okay, so I'll paste it into the chat in case any of you are following along. It's these two right here. So just copy that and put it right here under your title tag. So what I'm going to be going over right now is called the Options API. So what this basically does is it imports it using a CDN. And that's just basically a server that's like running the code as like an API. It's just making a call to get that. And if you were to actually paste this into your browser, you would just see it's just a JavaScript file. So that's all it's doing. This is Tailwind. This what I'm just going to be using to make the CSS a little bit easier. Okay, so what Vue does is basically you need to provide it an entry point, and that's how a lot of frameworks operate. So you need to create the script, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to say Vue, and we're going to say create app. We're going to provide it a object, a JavaScript object. We'll say that's called app. Of course, JavaScript needs the colon at the end. And so we're going to give it the object, and then we need to mount it. And we need to give it the entry point. And so we can just do a selector for that. And here is created our view. And so what's going to do, it's that's going to use this function called create app to create an app out of this object. And it's going to mount it onto here. So it's going to inject its code into here. So this is the entry point. Of course, this is not how you do it. Do it here. So let's just leave that blank right now. And so let's discuss the first thing with Vue. So Vue is able to create reactive components or variables. So how you would do that is you would say data and then say return. And here we can return an object. So this is very JavaScript specific, but basically you can put in an object key value pairs. So I think y'all know what hash maps are, right? Y'all know hash maps? Have y'all taken CS2 with Schweller? Yeah, okay, yeah. So yeah, basically what we're gonna be defining here is a hash map. So we're gonna say greeting, and we are going to say hello world. So let's just start off simple. Make sure that all our codes are there. And so in many frameworks, you're gonna see in order to get a variable from your JavaScript to your HTML, you're going to use a mustache. This is what they call a mustache, a double curly brackets. So we can just say greeting. And if you have liveserver, so let me actually share this with y'all. Can view. Let me copy the link. And let me post it right here in the chat so that you can, I guess, skip around in case. Okay. So I think to start off with, if you go there and you go to next steps, I recommend you go to VS Code and you search up for there you go. Okay, so if you see Visual Studio Code, type in volar, and you want to install this one. This basically comes prepackaged with everything you will need. And it also has like snippets, so you can do certain actions pretty fast. And also, I recommend you get this thing called liveserver. It's very handy because it basically deploys a server so that you can see it on your browser. So let's right click here, open with liveserver. And so let me put this here and put this right here. And look at that. Very nice. Okay, I was very worried that it was not going to work, if I'll be honest with you. Okay, so that's very cool, but it's not very impressive. So let's actually do a little bit more with this. So what if we wanted to say, get the length of this thing? So we could do with the mustache, because the mustache can also just run JavaScript. So you can put any JavaScript code in there. So you can do greeting dot length, and whatever variables in here, you can think of it as basically a console.log. This is basically running console.log onto the browser, but you don't need to put that there. It just basically does it for you. And so if we do this and we see that it's now 11, and if we are to just like maybe change this to hello, and now we see it dynamically returns the length of this. Okay, so that's pretty cool. But what if we want to do a little bit more with this? So this is a snippet. So if you just put input, Emmett should just autofill this for you. And what we want is a text. So we're going to do that. Let's get rid of some of this. So the first thing I want to introduce to you is this thing called a Vue model. So Vue model basically does this. Okay, so it is a attribute. So you are able to give it some code. So you will provide it one of these variables that you have here. Okay, so one of these reactive variables. And if we see here, probably also want to give it a background. Don't worry about this. This is just TypeScript. So, okay, just to make it a little bit more clear where our input field is. So, as we see in our text area, it has whatever the value of greeting is, which is hello. And we can see if we do this, it's now dynamic. It's dynamically changing our hello world, well, our greeting, and it's also changing this part too. Oh, wait, hold on. Can y'all see my browser? I just realized. Can y'all see my browser? Okay, yeah, sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, I just remembered I don't use Zoom too often. Okay, so I think, there you go, that's better. Okay. All right, there you go. Can you see this? Yes. Okay, cool. All right, so as I was saying before, so now we have our regular paragraph, and we also have our text area. So whenever we modify this, it will dynamically change greeting. So what it's actually doing is basically it's running a function to change the greeting, and it's running another function to return whatever that greeting is. Okay, so one of the most important concepts that you'll need to know about Vue is that it is a virtual DOM. So I don't know if any of you have done web development with just basic JavaScript before. You know, you would have to do like, if you wanted to do this, you would basically have to do like, I don't know, let's say like define a function, right? Probably call it change or something. And then you would have to do like, like query selector. Something like, oh yeah. Document, that's right, that's what it's called, like query selector. And then you would have to get whatever is inside of the text area, and then you would have to probably do like some Ajax call to asynchronously update this, and it's just a huge pain. But if we see here, we're doing all of that. We're not doing that. Vue is doing all of that for us, and all we just need to do is echo here whatever the value of greeting is, and we just need to use Vue model to change that for us. So let's go back to the slides. Well, so this is the options API. So there's, as I was saying, there's two ways that you can write this in Vue using the options API and the composition API. I did it this way just so that you can see Vue working. So let's go back to just the slides. Okay, And so let's present from here. And another important thing is the way that Vue works. So these are all the steps Vue does to render its components. Well, to compile and build its components. So the only things that you probably want to care about are all the things in red, because those are actually methods that you can call in Vue. In the options API, you would just do something like this. So go back over here. So you would do something like this. So after this data, since this is just a regular JavaScript object, we can actually chain them together. So we have a function there, and we're going to call another function called mounted. And if we notice, it's the same name from the thing that we had before. So we can just call an alert whenever we're done building all the objects and the page is like already rendered. Like we don't have to wait on it to like finish rendering from Vue's end. So we can say hello. And so if we save this and we go back to here, there we go. So if we run this again, we see it's saying hello. Because if we notice here, oh, wrong one. Right after we have done compiling and the render is finished, we are mounted. So you can do a lot more with this. Like if you want to run AJAX calls, so AJAX stands for asynchronous JavaScript. And that is like what you would do to like call an API or to get stuff from like a database. And so you would want to do that like right before you have compiled your template, because you don't want to return objects right after you render them, because you're going to have like missing pieces in your code. So you would probably want to use Creative for that. So in Vue, to do what I did, it's very similar, but this is something else. So you see at the bottom, we're using the curly brackets. That hasn't changed. So let me introduce you to like this new concept called attribute binding. So attribute binding is basically if you want to define something in your on Vue that you can change dynamically, right? You can actually set that as one of the attributes. So let me give you a demonstration of that. So what if we wanted to say change the color of a button? So let's actually try to do that. So let's create a button. Okay. And this is going to introduce two new concepts. So vbind is a directive that basically binds whatever is here. So let's actually make it a color. Let's call it color. And let's just say that is that text red. And let's up here define some styles. So let's say there's a text red. And for this one, we're going to set the color to red. And we're going to have a text green. That sets the color to green. Okay. So if you're familiar with HTML, you can basically set a class for these things. So let's actually not do vbind just yet. So let's just see, let's just make sure that this thing works. So let's set it to .text red right now. Text red. We don't need to include the dot because it just doesn't need that. because it knows it's a class. And so we just say click me. And so let me do the same trick again. So here, do the screen. Okay. So let's put that at the bottom. Okay. And then rerun this. Hello. Okay. And did I save it? I don't think I saved it. Okay, there it is. Okay. I know something. So let me get rid of this so I don't have to deal with that thing. Okay. So we're clicking it and it does nothing. So we can actually, instead of doing this, what if we wanted to set a variable that controls the color of this class instead of just hard coding it in? So let's just say color. All right. Whoops, what happened? I know what happened. You can't do that because you're not telling HTML that this is actually a Vue attribute, a Vue variable that you actually want to render. So what we need to do is call a directive called vbind. So you just say vbind with a colon, and then you just write your JavaScript code here. So you can just like either do this or you can leave it out, but let me just leave it in. And as we see, just making sure, yes. So now it's red, and we can still change this to green, and it turns it green, okay? Because Vue is reactive and it can change its elements whenever it detects a change. So what if we wanted to change this from green to red? So we can do that of various ways, but one way that we can do this is by taking advantage of being able to write JavaScript here. So let's just say color is set to true. Let's call it is red. And let's set that to true right now. And here in vbind, we're going to say is red. And this is called a ternary operator. I think you've seen this before in Python and C++. In JavaScript, this is how you would do a ternary operator. So it's just saying if this variable red is true, then we're going to do this. So vbind class will be text red. Otherwise, it will be text green. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so let's see what happened. Is red, text green, is red. Okay. Just make sure. I'm pretty sure this is how you do ternary. Just make sure. Oh, thinks I'm a robot. Pretty sure that's how you do ternary operator. Yeah, so I think it might be because I need to encapsulate them like this. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So that's another thing. So if you want to set it as text, you will need to encapsulate it in quotation marks because otherwise Vue is going to think that they're actually, well, actually JavaScript is going to think that they're variables. So that's something I forgot about. Okay, so that still doesn't do anything, but we set this to false manually, we'll see that it does do that. So let's turn it back. So let me introduce you to another thing called at or von. So von is a another directive that you can use to basically bind it, to bind a certain action. So it can take in like any of the methods that you can call on like a regular button. So the one we are interested in is click. So we bind on click. This. And so here we can define a method to call whenever this is ran. So let's just call it change. And so now in order, excuse me, to actually change this, let's go and introduce methods. So in methods, you can write all the functions that your application is going to be using. And it will basically be available to everything inside of your component. So let's write here change. And here what it's basically going to do is we need to say this because you want to be referencing the global value of is red. Just a JavaScript thing, but yeah. And the cool thing is that also, if you notice, these are not in the same context, but Vue will automatically put these as global. So you can access them from even a method like down here that's not in the same context or in the same scope, which is the better way to say. So what this is going to do is it's going to set the value of is red to the opposite. And so if we run this again, and let's just make sure, and there we go. And if you see in the corner, whenever I click it, it's setting this thing to the opposite. Because what Vue is doing is it's basically binding the click action to a function that we defined inside of our Vue app. And let's actually use a shorthand because the developers already know that we use vbind and von quite a bit. So if you were to do this, it's the same thing. So I'm going to be using these going forward. Just know that, so you don't get confused what that is. So this is cool, but the problem is that what if we wanted to like change this in the future, like instead of text green, like text blue, or because we don't really want to like create a hairball inside of our code. We want to have control over all of our like expressions, so we can actually take advantage of something else in Vue. And so this is going to be called a computed. So computed basically is like a method, but it's dynamic. So whenever one of its dependency changes, it will send an event letting everyone know, hey, this variable has changed. And so it changes everywhere that it's mentioned to the new value. So let's get all of this and let's paste it into here. And so we'll call it color. Yeah, we'll call it color here. So yeah, so I think that should do it. Let me just make sure that I'm not, where did I define it? Oh, there it is. Okay, so yeah, right here. Okay, so I think it's just this. Well, let's actually revisit the slides just to, because I think I was going pretty fast there. So let's go back. Let's go to the slide about computed values right here. So let's see how you would actually use them. Okay. So in order to actually define a computed value, and this is also all the pros and cons, and I'm not going to be reading that. I'm interested in the code. So here, a computed ref would be basically a function, and we need to, oh, that's right. We need to tell it to return something. And the other one, it didn't return anything. That's okay. That's why. Okay. Of course, just a simple JavaScript thing. Okay. So let's do screen. Okay. So let's put this down here, and let's move this over here. So instead of doing that, we're going to say return whatever so let's do this, do color again, and we will return whatever is returned from this ternary operator. Okay, so let's hope that this does something. Okay, so it did not do anything. Oh, this is a very important point. So it has to be this. And there we go. Yeah, so whenever you want to use a variable that's defined in your script and not on the outside, you have to say this. You don't have to say this here because Vue handles that for you, but here, you're the one that has to be responsible for that. So if we see this, there we go, it's working. And so I'm just gonna stop here, and I'm gonna ask if any of you have a question, or if you want me to go back and review something. Just like just a break, a quick break. Do any of you have any questions? You can ask them in the chat, or you can unmute yourselves. No? Okay. All right, sounds good. Let me go. Liquid Death. I don't know if anyone here likes Liquid Death, but I do. Okay, cool. All right, so in the composition API, it's a little bit different. You would actually define it as a function. So the reason why we don't use the options API, and I think you've probably seen it, noticed it already, that you're basically putting all your code in one single app object, or like an object, and that can get pretty loady, and especially since it really matters where you put your code in, like in the brackets, it can get a little bit confusing. So you can do like various things to counteract that, but the simplest alternative to this is just to simply use the composition API. So that was just a demonstration of what Vue can do. And so let's actually go and create a new Vue project using Vite. So let's go from here and go to composition. And so in the terminal, what we want to write is, I think it was npm. So npm is a package manager that comes with Node. And so at this point, I don't know if any of you have Node. So that's why I wanted to go through the first method, because you can actually follow along there. But here, if you have Node installed, try this out. So vue at latest. And so let's run that. Okay, so here we will have to write the name of our project. So we're just going to call it the workshop. Add TypeScript, you can just put no here. JSX support, but no for right now. You will want this if you're just working with like a single page. It helps, you know, Vue basically handles like redirecting to other pages, to other pages on your application and to like on the internet. So you definitely want this. This is cool, but no. Unit testing, no. And no. ESLint is cool. This basically helps you actually format your code correctly. Prettier, you always want this. You always want this. This is a necessity. And so now it tells you some commands to run. So let's do that. So cd workshop npm install. And so it's going to take a little bit of time for it to do everything. But yeah, if you want to install Node, you can just simply, I think, either go to the end here. Actually, not to the end. I think where I mentioned Node over here. So if you go like right here in the slides, there's going to be a link here. And so this is the link that you want to visit. And you just want to download whichever you like. I have, I think, Node 19 right now. But you can do whichever you want. Yeah, let me just finish. Oh, I'm actually way behind. So, okay. Okay, so let's do npm run lint. Okay, and then after that's done, we can do npm run serve. Yeah, run dev. And what that does is this thing called Vite is going to build your application for you, because you can either do it the way I've been doing it, where you actually run it in a JavaScript file, or you can use this thing called single file components. Okay, so let's actually go back over here, and we get the success page. Let me go back. Okay. Okay, so you can see that. So let's go into workshop. And so this is going to look very daunting at first, but the only ones that you need, only directories that you need to concern yourself with is with components, the router, assets, and so basically everything in source. So index.html is like how we've been doing it before, where we are like writing our Vue app, but instead it's calling it as a source. And this is also very important. You always want to have this whenever you're importing stuff inside of the file. So I'm getting. So this is doing the same thing. So here we see it has app, and if we go to main.js, it's importing create app from Vue. And the difference here is that it actually has it installed here as a package. So you don't have to call it from the internet. And we use the function create app, create a new app. We use router. So this is like what I was saying, that it's a progressive framework. So you're able to add new stuff on. And so this is exactly how you would do it. So if you wanted to add like state management, you would do like import state management here. And then you would just do another one right here and replace this, whatever with the name of that is. And here it mounts it to index.html here. But while we're here, we're able to see that we're importing the app from app.vue. So this is the composition API. Right here is the composition API. What it does is that you need to say script setup. You need to say script setup so that it can handle everything for you. So this is very cool and everything, but instead of using that one, we can go to source, find another one. So index.vue, and we can change it from app.vue to index. And if you have installed the volar extension pack that I have listed in the slides, you can actually do vbase. And I think it's this one. So you just do tab, and it creates the whole style for you. So here is where you're going to put your HTML in the template. Here, script is where you're going to put your JavaScript. Style is where you're going to put your CSS. So it's very simple. Everything is in its own place. You don't have to intermingle anything, and it's very nice. So here, just to test it out, we can just say, hello world. And let's see, what's the same? Index should always be looking good. Oh, I think it's yelling at me because it's like this. What else is it? Yeah. Index should always be looking here. What else is it saying? Okay. All right, well, let's see. Let's check out the page now. I think it's probably in the console. Yeah, so if you do ESLint, it's going to be yelling you at a lot. It's going to be yelling at you a lot. I still do recommend having it on, but you can also like just, you know, put no when you're doing the initial steps. So let me see. So let's run it again. So I really hate how Vue does this thing. It's always in the way. Okay, so the command is npm run dev. So if we look here, there we go. Hello world. Nice. Okay, so in the options API, you would have to do like define an object. Here, what you would do is actually just say let, which is how you define variables in JavaScript, and just call it greeting equal to, call it hello world. And here we can just say to that, give it the mustache called greeting here. Okay, and let's check the here. Okay, doesn't look like it's changed. So let me instead share my screen. Okay, so we see here that hello world is appearing. So if we get rid of that, a world, it's a world. Okay, and so the cool thing about Vite is also it's also like liveserver, where it can update your changes in real time. So we can do the same thing here. We can define an input area called text, and we can do v model equal to greeting. And so let's go back to here, a world. Okay, so we run into an issue. So the thing about the composition API is that you actually need to import stuff as you need it. So in the options API, we're able to do this, but we're not, because this is actually not reactive. In order to make it reactive, we need to do import packages from Vue, just like that. And so here we would want to import ref. And here, what we would do is do ref. And so now it is reactive. And if we go back over here, it is reactive. So that is the main difference with the composition and options API, is that with the composition, you have to import modules as you need them. So if you wanted to use computed, you would have to import computed. If you wanted to use mounted, you would say on mounted, and and so on. But we haven't even touched the surface with Vue. I mean, in an hour, it's very difficult to get everything covered. So let's just try to speed run through the slides a little bit. So let's present. So we've seen that attribute binding. So another thing about Vue is that there's actually two ways to make a reactive element, reactive and ref, and you can take a look at this afterwards to see the difference between the two. But basically, like reactive is able to use objects, but ref only works with sorry, reactive is only for objects, yeah, only for objects, and ref is only good for primitive objects. So that's just like the main difference. So conditionals, rendering. So you would call it just like v model, but instead of saying v model, you say vif, and in the quotation marks, you're able to write the JavaScript expression that you want to evaluate. And what it does is that anything inside of this will not be rendered. It will not be rendered. Or it won't be shown, depending on which one you use. Because if you see here, vif will conditionally render a block, but also vshow does the same thing. But vif actually does a thing called lazy renders. So what that means is that it actually doesn't exist on the page until the condition is true. When it's false, it actually won't be on the page. So you won't even go to like F12, you know, inspect element. You wouldn't even be able to see it on there. So that's very cool. V4 is very interesting. So if you can actually define a list of elements, and you can iterate through them just like in Python, because Python and JavaScript are kind of similar the way you write them. So you can say item in items, and then here you just say item.message to access the message inside of the item, because arrays can also just be like an array of objects, you know, like a list, like a list node. And so let's go to V4, and this is just some other things about it too that you can like iterate through like a number, and you can also like do some other stuff with it, and also just some precautions too. So this was the other way that I was talking about, that you could have done what I did in the first example with the classes. You could have actually used vbind on the class, because classes, classes actually can input a string. You can either give it an object or an array. If you give it an array, you're able to just like give it like a string. But if you define an object, you can actually say if some of those are true or false. So I don't think it gives an example of that. Oh, actually, right here. So like this is what I was talking about. So if we notice here, active is equal to whatever is active, and is active is a ref of true, and in the computed, so this is called a lambda function. It's just like an inline function. And so you can learn more about JavaScript to like figure this out. But basically, it's just like in C++, you do like the brackets, and then you would do the, I think it's also equals with the arrow. And on Python, you actually just write lambda. So you see here, it toggles it on and off. So this is another way of doing it. So computed, I went over computed, but this is how you would do it in the composition API. And so let's actually skip this and go over to components. So with the composition API, I think if we notice, and I know we're running out of time, so this is the last thing that I'm gonna go over, because this is why Vue is so important. So I hope, does anyone mind if I go over time? Like, are we okay with that? Just so I can cover components. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna quickly go over it. Okay. So in the options API, you would actually have to say, like, if you have your app, right? You have your data, you have your thing here, and you would have another one called components. Sorry. Boom, then boom. Sorry. And here you would import your the things that you're using. So we can actually get an example of that over here. Whenever we import the app, we're actually telling Vue to build this for us. So in order to do it with the composition, and I don't think I went over this, but in order to use the composition API, you have to give it setup. You have to use setup here. If you don't have setup here, it's actually going to use options API, and you have to do the this thing. Okay, so a quick note on that. So yeah, import, and let's just say components. So gee, let's look at app.vue to get a better look at this. So if we notice the way here, they are importing hello world from components hello world.vue. And it's able to use it just like any other normal HTML tag. So very cool, because you can actually, instead of like if you have a like a thing that you're using multiple times, you can encapsulate it as a component. So if we look at what hello world is, we can go to components, go to hello world, and here we're able to see that it's just a div for the greeting, class of green. This is some CSS stuff. And we're able to see everything that's with it. And props are basically a way for the parent to talk to the child. And so here we just need to import it just like this in order to use a in order to use the component. So we don't need to do anything else. So you can actually do a lot with this, but looks like we're at time. But okay, but let's look at the slides just to get over those. But yeah, I recommend installing Node and to run npm init at Vue latest, and just like kind of look at the files a bit to get a better picture of Vue. So yeah, so component basics. Props is how you talk to from a parent to a child. And this is style bindings. If you want to do functions, you can do the same thing with how you did the variables. You can just define a function and you're able to use that function inside of the HTML. And if you want to do specific things, you can look at this. The V model, we went over that. Slots is a very cool thing. It's basically what is in between the two HTML tags. This is how you would do it. So I know we went pretty fast, but if anyone has any questions, you have the floor. Do any of y'all have any questions or any comments? No? Okay. Well, so here are some of the resources that I use. And so next workshop, next Wednesday, we'll be going over how to actually use Vue to make a portfolio website. So this one was just like an introduction on Vue and how to use it. But the next one is actually how to use it for like an applicable process, and to use Firebase to deploy it for free. And I think what I recommend for y'all to do, if you want to explore more about Vue, is look at the awesome 5-hour crash course for Vue 3 on Laracast. The only thing with that one is that you're only able to see a couple of videos before it tells you to pay up. But what you can do is just like either refresh the page and like clear your cookies or something, or use another device to continue. That's what I did to finish it. And if you are rusty on your JavaScript, look at this bottom one to get like snippets of JavaScript. But yeah, other than that, I have nothing else to say. So I'm going to stop the recording here. And let me stop the share, stop the recording.